Chosen one, there is something different in the way people look at you now. Some stare too long, others glance too quickly, but all feel the same thing. You've become someone they can no longer ignore. The jealousy forming around you isn't born of hatred, but of shock, a quiet panic wrapped in smiles, as if they suddenly realized the fire they once overlooked is now the sun that burns through their illusions. They don't understand how you changed, only that something about you now speaks too loudly to their unspoken insecurities. You've walked into the room with the weight of divine sexual energy radiating through your stillness, and that stillness has made noise in places where performance used to rule. They wonder why people gravitate toward you, why feminine energy softens in your presence, and why words seem unnecessary when you're near. But what they don't see is how long it took to build this silence, how many days you had to sit in your own shadow and breathe through the heat of temptation without being consumed. What they envy now is not the glow, but the cost. You carry yourself like someone who has survived refinement, and that kind of aura is not for sale. You are not just physically attractive. You are energetically rare. And because most have not met a man who commands without conquering, their jealousy rises, uninvited, every time you simply exist. You've become the storm and the shelter in one breath. That's why they whisper. That's why they laugh when you're gone. That's why even those who once knew you now feel like strangers in your presence. You have become the proof that evolution is real. And for many, witnessing that evolution is more terrifying than staying blind. Chosen one, your frequency has become a threat, not because you harmed anyone, but because your peace has started to expose their chaos. Your high sexual energy isn't just chemistry, it's divinity contained in masculinity, power restrained by principle, depth tempered by discipline. This makes you unreadable to the shallow and unforgettable to the feminine. Women can feel you before you speak, and it disorients them, not because you're a mystery, but because you make them remember something ancient, something sacred, something they thought had disappeared from this world. They don't just want your attention, they want your permission to surrender to the real. And that, chosen one, is a desire too deep for most to admit. The men around you feel it too, even if they hide it under sarcasm, avoidance, or competition. They see how rooms change when you arrive and how conversations bend toward your silence. You don't fight for dominance, yet you end up setting the tone. You don't flirt for affection, yet feminine women blush and shift in your orbit. It isn't witchcraft. It isn't manipulation. It is alignment. And alignment is unbearable to those who have built their identity on performance. You've become a living contrast to every man who speaks loudly but doesn't resonate, who postures big but doesn't feel like anything real. And so the jealousy grows, not just because of how you look, but because of what you feel like to others. You feel like truth, you feel like safety, you feel like a mirror. And a mirror is the one thing the false self cannot survive. So let them talk, let them envy, let them feel whatever they must. You were not sent here to be liked. You were sent here to be recognized by those ready to remember. Chosen one, your existence has become a contradiction they cannot reconcile. You are calm, but commanding. You are kind, yet unshakable. Your high sexual energy radiates without invitation, without performance, without even a glance of effort. Because it is no longer about how you look, but what your soul remembers. And that memory is now leaking through your skin, through your breath, through the gravity of your posture. You are a man who doesn't beg to be seen anymore, and it's that which has made you visible to all. They want to know where your fire comes from and why theirs cannot match it. But they don't understand that your fire is not for show. It is for refining, for cleansing, for purifying what no longer belongs. You burn, but you do not consume. You radiate, but you do not seduce. You are not trying to pull anyone in. You are simply too magnetic for their illusions to escape you. And because of that, people either orbit around you like they've found a sun, or flee like moths afraid to burn in your presence. Feminine women sense this sacred flame more deeply than anyone. Not just the warmth, but the control, the direction, the depth. Your fire doesn't scorch their skin, it warms their intuition. It doesn't make them dizzy, it awakens their softness. And in a world where men often chase, perform, or overreach, you have become a paradox that ruins every shallow fantasy. You are not loud, yet they hear you. You are not grasping, yet they reach for you. You are not perfect, but you are present. And that, chosen one, is the rarest kind of heat. One that burns away pretense, not people. Let them misunderstand. Let them talk about the fire without knowing how long it took you to carry it with reverence. You do not need their praise. You never did. You've been lit by something eternal. And those who cannot bear the warmth will always pretend you're dangerous. But you've stopped caring about opinions. You've started protecting your flame. Chosen one, there's a gravity in you now that no one can replicate. You don't chase conversations, yet people turn when you speak. You don't ask to be respected, but the room knows when you're present. Your high sexual energy isn't loud. It's like a deep pulse under your skin, guiding everything around you with its rhythm. This gravity has nothing to do with ego and everything to do with internal structure, because you are no longer a man reacting to life, but a man holding it. You are no longer driven by appetite, you are anchored by vision. This is why so many feel intimidated and fascinated in equal measure. They have seen men who dress the part, flex the role, claim the title. But you embody something they cannot name. You walk like a man who is not looking to be chosen, but one who has already chosen himself. And that internal choice has become visible to others. It has become undeniable to the feminine. You don't convince her with words. You awaken her with frequency. Jealousy forms where authenticity cannot be imitated. It's not just that you are admired, it's that you are true. Women can tell, men can feel it, even children recognize it. That's why you are followed, questioned, studied, resisted. And still, you don't move for attention, you move for purpose. You don't dominate the space, you shape it. And that power, chosen one, cannot be bought, borrowed, or inherited. It can only be forged in silence. You have become gravity, and those who cannot yet stand in their own weight will always feel shaken by yours. Chosen one, your aura has started to interfere with the illusions men build their lives around. Without saying a word, you've become a mirror they didn't ask for, one that reflects not who they pretend to be, but who they have refused to become. And that is why their jealousy stings more than it ever did. Not because you've taken anything from them, but because your existence has shattered their excuses. You carry a high sexual energy that's not laced with hunger, desperation, or artificial dominance. It's tempered with grace, steadiness, and self-respect. You are dangerous to weak identities, not because you threaten them, but because you reveal their hollowness. Around you, masculine pretense begins to tremble. The posturing fades, the jokes become nervously timed. They try to regain the upper hand by speaking louder, moving faster, making unnecessary noise. But the deeper truth is this: their nervous system doesn't trust their own masculinity, and yours makes it undeniable. You stand as a contradiction to every lie they've wrapped themselves in. You don't chase validation because you've already located yourself. You don't compete for attention because your value has nothing to do with comparison. You move like a man who knows what he is not willing to lose: his soul. Women pick this up, consciously or not. They know what it means when a man isn't seduced by seduction. When a man can be in the presence of softness without collapsing into lust. When he can sense desire but still choose direction. That is the kind of aura that dismantles illusions and rewrites attraction. And you, chosen one, walk in it daily, not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you've survived the war within yourself. You became this man through blood, through silence, through fire. And now, your very presence makes liars uncomfortable. The jealous ones won't say this out loud. They'll call you lucky. They'll label you as arrogant or mysterious or unrelatable. But in private, they rehearse your posture. They mimic your stillness. They try to reverse engineer your energy without knowing that what makes you different cannot be imitated. It must be embodied. And embodiment only comes from alignment, not performance. Chosen one, there is a stillness in you now that changes atmospheres. Not a silence born of fear, avoidance, or retreat, but a silence born from containment. The kind of silence that carries authority, not volume. The kind that doesn't argue to prove rightness, but waits, because truth always finds its own audience. Your high sexual energy is not in your words, it is in your restraint. in the way you let tension live in the air a little longer, because you are not in a rush to relieve others from the impact of your presence. You've begun to notice that when you enter a room, things pause, not because you demand attention, but because you interrupt performance. People have grown so used to noise, drama, and exaggerated personas that when a man walks in with actual gravity, everything unravels. They start second-guessing their laughter. They soften their tone. They speak with hesitation or try to overcompensate. But what they are really feeling is the invisible truth, that you are not moved by their act, and that you're not playing the same game. The feminine responds to this in a way most men don't understand. She doesn't chase the loudest man. She surrenders to the deepest one, the one whose silence is not empty, but charged. The one whose attention feels like a spiritual event. The one who can hold eye contact without intention to manipulate, but with a presence that says, "I see you, and I do not flinch." That kind of silence is rare, and it makes you unforgettable. They will call it luck. They will say you have something, but that something, chosen one, is not a trait. It is a frequency earned in the shadows. You've become the man others thought didn't exist. And your silence is not your weakness. It is the throne from which your energy rules. Chosen one, your peace has become more powerful than most men's aggression. There's something sacred about the way you no longer react to what would have once provoked you. You have become a man whose nervous system is not for rent, a man whose emotions move with precision, not impulse. And this kind of peace is not passive. It is earned through mastery. Your high sexual energy no longer flares outward wildly to prove itself. It flows inward, deeply rooted, like molten gold behind steady eyes. That's what makes others tremble. That's why feminine women are magnetized to you. They feel safe not because you are soft, but because your power doesn't leak. You have stopped begging the world to understand you. You are no longer chasing acknowledgement, nor bending your identity to be digestible to others. Your presence, as it stands now, is a quiet rebuke to everything performative and shallow. When women come near you, they are not looking at a man who is posturing. They are encountering a man whose soul has returned home to his body. And that return has made you divine. Others sense this but can't explain it. They wonder how a man who speaks so little can command so much. They wonder how you are both calm and captivating, distant yet deeply felt. It is because you are available to your purpose, but not accessible to everyone's chaos. You do not move for drama. You do not entertain confusion. You are rooted, you are whole, and you are dangerous to every system built on distraction. Feminine women recognize this wholeness. It draws them not just to your appearance, but to your stability, your direction, your integrity. They feel your mind more than your looks. They sense the palace you've built within yourself, and they ache to be near its warmth. You don't need to convince them of your value. They are already whispering about you when you leave the room. And the reason is simple. Chosen one, you are not moved by noise. You have become peace in a world starving for attention. Chosen one, your eyes have become a doorway. Not to manipulation, not to game, but to something older and more real. When you look at a woman, you're not consuming her, you're seeing her. That's what changes everything. Most men look through women, over women or at women, but you look into them without flinching and without an agenda. And that look carries weight because it's not empty lust, it's charged presence. Women feel safe under your gaze, not because it is weak, but because it's clean. You are not trying to conquer. You are simply not afraid to witness. That is rare. That is holy. That is what separates you from the masses. Your high sexual energy has been tempered by truth, and truth makes the feminine feel honored, not used. When a woman feels truly seen, her body softens, her guard drops, her feminine core awakens. And she doesn't know why, but around you, she breathes differently. She speaks differently. She remembers who she is. Because you have remembered who you are. The jealous ones see this and grow angry, not because of what you do, but because of what you don't need to do. You don't chase. You don't flex. You don't project. You rest in your skin. And that resting makes you undeniable. You could walk into a room full of noise and games and still speak louder with your silence than they could with their egos. That is the power of masculine stillness married to inner fire. And chosen one, the more you honor this power with discipline, the more doors will open to you that others will call luck. But it will not be luck. It will be the reward of living aligned, walking in presence, and never once compromising who you are. Your eyes are no longer just windows. They are signals, and feminine women are reading them like scripture. You don't have to say anything. They already know. Chosen one, there are women who once passed by you without pause. Women who didn't notice your voice, your walk, your presence. But something has changed, not in your appearance alone, but in your energy, in the sovereign current that now flows from your every gesture. The very women who never gave you a second glance are now undoing their breath in your presence. Because something about you reminds them of what they forgot, that true masculinity is not loud, it is inevitable. You walk like a man who belongs to something deeper than approval, and that makes you sacred in their eyes. Your high sexual energy no longer demands to be validated, it validates the moment itself. When you speak, women feel the silence behind your words. When you sit, they feel how much you are not needing them to respond. You've become the man who can exist in full, even when unnoticed, and that invisibility has become your strength. Because now, when they do see you, they cannot unsee you. Their mind replays your stillness, their body remembers your nearness, and their soul aches, not for what you said, but for what you are. You didn't chase this transformation. You didn't beg for recognition. You didn't fake softness to attract love. You stayed aligned, faithful to the truth that becoming a man worth loving was more important than being liked. That is why now, even the ones who once doubted you carry quiet awe in their eyes. They have seen 100 men who looked the part. But you, chosen one, you are the part. You became the mirror that exposes the shallow and the magnet that awakens the deep. And while others compete to be chosen, you remain still because you have already chosen yourself. And that has made all the difference. Chosen one, your glow no longer flickers in and out, it radiates. You've built your fire in silence, fed it with discipline, protected it from distraction, and now it burns through everything false. You are no longer trying to be seen, you have become the vision itself. Women feel you before they see you. They whisper about you, not just because you are beautiful, but because your beauty is tethered to depth. You are not surface, you are sky. You are still water that drowns pride and reveals truth. Your high sexual energy is not just desire, it is direction. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Every step you take now is measured in meaning. Every gaze, every touch, every word carries a frequency that the shallow cannot interpret, but the feminine feels deeply. They lean in, not because you've asked them to, but because they can't help it. You have become gravity, not the pull of lust, but the pull of remembrance. They see in you the man God whispers about in the hidden prayers of women who crave not just safety, but soulful dominance. You did not earn this by accident. You became this by refusing to bow to your lower nature, by letting your hunger be ruled by honor, by letting your masculinity be crowned with presence, not performance. You no longer seek the easy affirmation of bodies, you speak to spirits. You awaken what has been sleeping in the feminine for generations. You remind them what it feels like to trust again. And for that, chosen one, they will never forget you. You were not made for applause. You were made for remembrance. And now, the women who once doubted you can feel the truth. You are not like the rest. You are the answer their soul has been waiting for. Not because you chased them, but because you returned to yourself first. That is the source of your glow. That is the reason they will orbit you now, whether you speak or stay silent. Chosen one, there is something about you now that lingers in the air long after you've left the room. Not because of something you did, not because of anything you said, but because of what you didn't. The world has been conditioned to overshare, to perform its emotions out loud, to explain and justify and flash every angle in the hope that anyone will understand. But you've stepped beyond that. You have entered a state of restraint, not out of fear, but out of deep power. And this quiet, this sacred containment of your energy has made you unknowable in the most compelling way. You have become mystery, not as a strategy, but as a byproduct of alignment. You're not hiding, and yet you are no longer easy to read. You have released the need to be fully understood, and in doing so, you've become someone worth discovering. There's something in your glance, in your half-smile, in the stillness between your words that feels like an unanswered question. People sense there's more, much more, beneath the surface, and that recognition grips them. It doesn't scream for attention, it whispers for reverence. Women feel it first, though they won't always say so. Something about your presence awakens their intuition, not in the way that screams danger or performance, but in the way that evokes depth. They can tell you're not projecting yourself forward, not selling yourself, not pushing energy toward them. And that silence, that lack of pursuit, makes them lean in. Their curiosity is not driven by confusion. It's driven by the sense that you carry something rare, something sacred, something earned. You have become the pause in a song they didn't realize they needed to hear. You are not the chorus that repeats until it's forgotten. You are the bridge, the sudden shift in melody that demands attention. And they don't quite know how to hold that. Because you are not predictable. You are not reactive. You do not perform the masculine image the world sells. You are masculinity before it learned shame. You are wildness after it learned wisdom. And so, you become, for them, not a man to conquer, but a man to wonder about. This is what happens when your presence is no longer packaged. You no longer give away your entire story in the first breath. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your goodness, your depth, your value. You've stopped narrating your worth because you now embody it. And so when someone speaks with you, they don't get a monologue, they get a moment, clean, unhurried, present. And within that moment, they feel themselves pulled, not by force, but by frequency. You have become mystery, chosen one, not because you are distant, but because you are unavailable to the superficial. And those who dare to get closer find themselves disarmed, not by seduction, but by sincerity, not by charm, but by the way you hold their gaze without leaning forward, the way you ask questions and leave space for real answers, the way you can sit in silence without anxiety, because you're not trying to fill space, you are the space. This is not a tactic. This is not some dating trick. This is the natural aura of a man who has stopped oversharing to be validated, who has learned that mystery is not withholding, it is holding. Holding self, holding presence, holding depth. You do not chase curiosity, you become it. And so they wonder. They wonder what you've seen, what you've healed from, what shaped your eyes to look the way they do. They wonder what your silence holds, what your time means, what your hands are capable of building. They wonder how it feels to be chosen by a man who no longer needs to be chosen to feel complete. And they know that even if they never get the answers, they will never forget the question you left them with. Chosen one, the world is full of words, of promises made and broken, of men who say the right things but collapse under pressure. And in that landscape, your consistency is not just refreshing, it's transformational. You've become a man whose integrity speaks louder than his opinions, a man whose actions echo long after his voice goes silent. And whether they know it or not, those around you feel it in their bones. You are safe. Not safe in the weak sense, not safe in the agreeable nice guy mold that bends to please everyone. You are safe because you are solid. You are safe because your inner world matches your outer expression. You say what you mean, you follow through, you keep your word, not for approval, but because you've made peace with discipline. You hold boundaries, not to control others, but to protect what is sacred within you. And that reliability, that fierce inner order makes people, especially women, feel like they can breathe again. You are not perfect, you are not flawless, but you are real. And in a world where authenticity is often masked by performance, you stand out. You don't flinch when things get hard. You don't backtrack when someone challenges you. You don't avoid accountability. If anything, you welcome it. Because you've already held yourself to higher standards in silence than the world will ever ask of you out loud. And that's why your presence feels like home. There are women who meet you, and without knowing why, feel their nervous system slow. They speak with more softness. They laugh with more truth. They trust themselves more when they're near you. Not because you try to make them feel that way, but because you live in alignment. Your consistency frees them from needing to guess who you'll be tomorrow. Your steadiness allows their feminine flow to unfold naturally because they're no longer managing your emotions. They're no longer waiting for the shift, the moment when the nice man turns cold or collapses. With you, there is no mask, no hidden agenda, no performance to decode, and the integrity you live with is not loud. You don't wave it like a banner, you don't preach it like a sermon. It lives in the small, invisible moments. In the way you show up even when it's inconvenient. In the way you say no without apology, and yes without expectation. In the way your presence stays rooted when others get reactive. You are not ruled by temptation. You are not swayed by external chaos. You choose your values and then you live them. Quietly, relentlessly, day after day. That, chosen one, is why you are unforgettable. You become the rare presence that others begin to measure themselves against. Not because you ask them to, but because they want to rise to your level. You've stopped chasing admiration. You've become the example. You've stopped asking for respect. You've become the standard. And for women, especially those who have known men who said the right things but lived the wrong truths, your integrity is not just attractive, it's healing. You become the man they don't have to doubt, the man they don't have to test, the man they don't have to manage. You become the one whose word is not a weapon, but a foundation, whose promises are not empty but anchored. This is the kind of energy that doesn't fade. It doesn't spike with chemistry and crash with disappointment. It builds, it deepens, it stays. You are the man they feel safe trusting, safe softening with, safe remembering themselves around. And you did not become this by accident. You chose this. Every day, even when no one was watching, especially when no one was watching. Chosen one, the greatest shift of all was never in your muscles, your looks, your voice, or your talents. The greatest shift was in your need. Or rather in the quiet death of it. Once, you needed women to validate your worth. You needed their affection to feel alive, needed their attention to feel seen. Even when you didn't say it aloud, the frequency of that emptiness echoed through your touch, through your posture, through your eyes. But that version of you is long gone. Now you walk without reaching. You smile without begging. You enjoy women without attaching your identity to their desire. And that single transformation has made you the most magnetic man in any room. Not because you withhold affection or pretend to be above emotion, but because you no longer source your sense of self from anyone outside you. This is a deeper form of magnetism. It's not about being charming. It's not about clever words or curated appearances. It's not about playing hot and cold games or seducing through strategy. It's about how deeply rooted you are in your own being. How silent your spirit is in the presence of noise. How full you've become, so full that your cup overflows but never spills. You are no longer in orbit around the opinions of others. You are not trying to be impressive. You are simply expressed. You are not trying to be liked. You are living in truth. You do not fear rejection. You understand now that rejection can only wound those who are still outsourcing their wholeness. And so, you become the man who gives without clinging, who receives without obligation, who allows women to be drawn to him naturally, not because he's performing or presenting something false, but because the space within him is clean. There's no agenda behind your compliments, no neediness in your laughter, no manipulation behind your invitations. You're not offering attention as bait, you're offering it as presence, and the women around you feel it. They feel how free they are to be themselves with you. They feel how unburdened the connection becomes when you're not trying to win or possess. Some are even shaken by it, confused by how strong their attraction is when you're not doing any of the things they were told men do to earn desire. But you're not trying to earn anything anymore. You are the reward. And you offer yourself with care, not with desperation. This energy, this lack of need, doesn't make you cold. It makes you whole. And in that wholeness, women feel a permission they rarely experience, a permission to rest, to open, to be soft without fear. You are not the storm. You are the stillness after it. And you didn't become this way by accident. You became this way by choosing discomfort over escapism, depth over validation, truth over performance, again and again. Now you embody what can't be faked, and women don't just see it, they feel it, sometimes before they even speak to you. In your posture, in your presence, in the way your eyes don't dart around trying to measure your worth in glances, in the way you can walk away without malice, speak without selling, love without losing yourself. You are magnetic not because you pull, but because you stand. Not because you ask, but because you offer. And the mystery of your peace becomes the signal that turns heads, quickens pulses, and disrupts patterns. You are no longer reacting to life. You are attracting what belongs to you. And that chosen one is what they can't resist. Chosen one, there is a point when your transformation no longer just changes your life, it changes the room you enter. And you've arrived there. You no longer speak the loudest, yet your words linger the longest. You don't take up space by force, yet somehow space opens around you. Not out of fear, not out of fame, but because people sense something real, and their spirits lean toward it. You've become the kind of man whose presence outlives his physical proximity. Long after you've walked away, people still feel the impression of your energy. They remember how they spoke more truthfully when you were near, how they listened more carefully,